though. And there's a lot of faces today, not just myself or Laura, who, well, I guess that's one face minus. But we have Randall right here, and then we have Rachel down here. And between the three of us, this really, the DevSecOps Dojo is a little bit to blame to pretty much like everyone that you're looking at here right now. So I'll start by introducing, I guess, in order from like the top to the bottom. So Randall is a developer, and I met Randall because he saw the projects that we were working on, and we started making these really sweet toolboxes, which is like, because I started building a little platform that I work on for things, and I was like, oh, sweet, we can like distribute these. And then, he picked these up and starts figuring out, we can develop all these different things. And with him being a developer, then that got me thinking about many things. That led to me asking Randall many questions, and Randall was kind enough to answer my questions, because not everyone answers my questions when I ask questions who's my customers, but I do, which is quite all right. I know that like not everyone's like in social media all the time and things like that. So I guess there's a little bit of a right place in the right time and stuff like that. And some people just want to get their project and work on it, which is great. So then we have Rachel Spiewak, who is also to blame for the only reason I know Randall. Because if it wasn't for Rachel Spiewak, there's a whole lot we wouldn't have done in the first place, including probably leaning into really building a community. And so my name is Nate O'Reilly, for those who don't know me. I've been running this company called Notia Point for going on 4 years now, which is, I guess, a little different to think about. I used to always feel like I just started the business, and I'm at the point now where it's like it really does kind of feel like I've just been running this thing for forever. But it's really fascinating watching everything grow. And one thing that I'm sure you don't see a lot of, like, I guess, startup owners talk about is like a little bit of like the journey that brought them to like some of these different stages of the business. So the first thing before I start like I guess just opening conversation is like when I started the business, I was just trying to figure out something that not only is going to allow me to make a living, do what I want to do, and have like a career in a company that I believe in and all that stuff. But that's easier said than done, because one thing, like when you run a business, for those who've never run a business before, when you run a business, things are very different from having standard employment and other things in different ways, which is not a bad thing. It's just different. It's that you have to do things that you like, because if you don't do things that you like, burning out as an entrepreneur is way different from burning out as when you have like a salary and things like that. And I come from being a developer and having a comfortable role with benefits and all those things, and then moving away from that to all of a sudden like trying to force yourself to do something you despise doing. You'll burn out, and then during the time that you're burnt out, you don't have PTO, you don't have money like coming in, and let's say that you had funding. That funding is like a giant pile of cash that someone's just like setting on fire with every day that you can't find motivation. So being burnt out as an entrepreneur might as well just be like setting a pile of cash on fire. And so in my journey to find something that I wanted to do, I like shared this post that I saw from someone named Rachel Spiewak one day, and I was like, this is something that I tell people all the time. Check it out. This, like, she's saying the same kind of thing.
What was the post?
Oh, I should dig that post up sometime. Oh, I was also getting a picture of me breakdancing for reasons.
That's right.
Randall
supposed to start with that.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to talk about breakdancing. Even Rachel knows about the breakdancing. Yeah, it, like if I should dig up that post sometime. But what the post was like, you were like, I was telling people, because I help people get jobs, that if you want to get a job, go find someone who's a lot like you and talk to them, and they'll probably hire you if they're a hiring manager or someone who has access to hiring or something along those lines. And it just kind of works that way. And I tell people that all the time, and I helped a lot of people over the years get jobs. And then this year I helped more people get jobs than ever. But Rachel, she made a post. She's like, I saw this person, and they had these things going on and this other stuff. She's like, it was me. And then I shared it. I was like, this is exactly why I tell people that if you want a job, you like find someone like who like and remind them of themselves. And if you remind them of themselves, you're more likely to get hired, generally speaking. So anyways, I shared that out, and that was like the first like 200,000 people saw that post. I was like, what is going on?
I remember that post. I remember like the punchline, like, and it was me, because that they used that punchline on what's it called, the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. If you've ever watched this show, it's on Netflix, and it like the punchline of many jokes is, and it was me. But of course, it's like we all knew that. That's why it's funny. But I think the point I might have been making was that when you are trying to get a job, for example, people come at it on LinkedIn, especially their social posts are coming from this point of desperation, like somebody save me, somebody help me, I don't have a job, therefore I bring nothing to the table. And that's not very enticing. So what you've got to do is flip it around and say, you know, I am this, like whatever job it is you're trying to have, you are that. It doesn't matter if somebody else validates it by employing you to do that. You are that regardless. So if you show up as that and you're awesome at it, and you know, build a community around it, and then establish yourself as an authority on the topic, then somebody's going to want to work with you, whether it's an employer or somebody who just wants to be a client of yours, which I think is a better situation to be in. I think that might have been the gist of the post.
Well, and it led to the like everything that Rachel Spiewak says is pretty much just true. So one thing I'll just tell people, that if you're trying to succeed in business, just listen to what Rachel Spiewak says, and you will find levels of success that you never knew existed. So I was like, I need a business coach, and you're the person who I want to listen to. And of course, there's like all these people who I want to listen. But the thing is, like, Rachel showed me actual value, and that's how she got me to want to work with her. And I was like, as long as you know this thing, then that means that I can at least like find ways to, yeah. So anyways, there you go. So then I'm like, take my money. Like I'm gonna work with Rachel Spiewak. And I was like, I do want it. What I wanted and what I saw in that was like, I want a community, and I want to work with people who I'm like really, and I love working with the people that I've worked with, and students and things like that. And I like helping people build up. But at some point, having like helped people get jobs for years, and I love doing that and stuff, like, I'm a developer at heart. I want to make cool things. And in my pursuit of finding all of these things, I found our intern, like Jordan M., who's also someone who just wants to build cool things. And he started building cool things, which then all of that came from what Rachel Spiewak taught me. And then next thing I know, you know, Randall comes and is like, these services look really cool. And, you know, started learning cybersecurity stuff, and so we were teaching, because I was primarily teaching cybersecurity development, how to develop cybersecurity programs. And so then that's when we met Randall. So I guess, like, just to ask on the other side of the coin, because Rachel can talk to the, you know, what's it like to kind of like coach someone into like actually being able to build something that they want to do, and find a way to build a career and business that they believe in and want to do, because that's a hard thing as an entrepreneur. So then, like, Randall, what was it like when, like, you find us as like a customer, and I'm just like trying to find like a way to have a cool, fun business? Like that's literally the active pursuit I was in. It's like, I want to have a cool business.
Yeah. So I was, you know, I'm going to school still for cybersecurity, and I always kind of wanted to move from development into cybersecurity. And so I'm learning cybersecurity, and somehow I run across you, which apparently is because of Rachel. And I was like, what are these pies? These are pies. These are so cool, right?
Yeah.
As somebody, you know, because I started off in hardware, and I loved hardware. But you kind of realize there's not a lot of money in hardware. People just, you know, it's all software.
Yeah, I'm learning that.
So I kind of switched. I was like, let me just go take some software route here. But hardware is always fascinating me. So here's this little tiny thing that does a thing, but it's so powerful, right? And then, you know, you were coming out with the dual pies, and I was like, these cases are just really, really sweet. And then you've got the, you know, the Pied Hacker experience on top of that. And so I actually started off with the Pied Hacker experience. And as you're going through it, it's really in depth. It's really well laid out. You learn a lot, but then you realize this is kind of like development. You know, you can develop this stuff. Like, so the stuff you're learning, you're like, you can actually make this stuff on this Pi. And then, you know, you can cluster this hardware together and make them even more powerful. So, you know, I got 6 Pis back here. That's 24 cores of processing and 48 gigs of RAM. I mean, you can do some stuff with it, and it's really inexpensive, you know, compared to like buying your own server and doing these things. And so, yeah, I was fascinated by it all, and I was like, I want to know what this stuff is. And so I reached out to you, just kind of asking questions. But, you know, you really like right back answer my question. I was like, oh, he's actually a real person. Like, you know. And so, you know, yeah, through conversation and picking your brain on things and actually, you know, just listening to your videos over time, listening to your, and I know we talk about this a lot, is your skill set. And the background that you have is so uncommon. It's common to you because you think that's a real thing. People just don't work on dark sites. They don't. Okay? I just want to tell you that. But, you know, to hear you talk about dark sites, I'm like, this is so cool. I've got to know this stuff. And then, so I was hooked because, you know, here's these little things you can develop on, which are fascinating. But also, you can build your own cloud, apparently. You know, because we discussed later, because you're like, well, what should we do now? And that's kind of when we got in, you know, talking and, you know, shooting things back and forth, like, you know, we could do this, we could do that, or you could do that.
Oh, so much.
And you were like, yeah, you know, and we had that nice 4-hour conversation that my wife still doesn't let me live down because it was late. But, you know, time zones are a thing.
Yes, that's true.
But, you know, through that, you're like, oh, you know what? I think I got this. I know what we're doing. And you're like, yeah, we're going to do a dojo. And I'm like, get out of town. We're going to build a dojo. Okay. Yeah, actually, that makes sense. A dojo. The layout is perfect. And what you can teach in there. And, I mean, for the price, too. I mean, really, if we can talk about price, I know we're just being casual here, but I figured it out one night because I was like, what I'm paying for is phenomenal because I can sit and just pick your brain and I'm just going to take everything out of your brain and then I'm going to build with that and I'm going to learn cloud engineering and cybersecurity and DevSecOps, right? Because there's a whole thing to be learned there. But yeah, so I forgot what I was going to say.
And I think the Facebook group was a bit of a precursor to the dojo because
I think it was
the free coaching Fridays. That's amazing because that's what naps the
that's what brought me and Nato together because I was running a program at the time to teach entrepreneurs how to create awesome Facebook groups, and because of our work together, since then I'm now able to teach how to create profitable Facebook groups. So that's the growth that I've been able to achieve from our work together. But I think teaching Nato how to build a community on Facebook, kind of pull away from the technical side a little bit and be a little more human about it and be a little more community oriented. I think that's what also positioned, you know, people to find Nathan. You know, how anytime somebody asks on LinkedIn, who should I talk to about cybersecurity? All roads lead to Nato. And a lot of that, even though that's LinkedIn, it happened because of the Facebook group, building a community, building your authority and empowering your community members, and then turning them into your army of marketers who then go right back over to LinkedIn and let everybody know that you're the dude.
And, you know, it's literally you who taught me that. And it's interesting because after Rachel taught me these things, I'm like, oh, sweet. And then I was like, hey, look, you can get all this traffic with ads and things like that because I do data science and things like that. And so then Rachel and I started talking a lot more, and we were like, oh, why don't we start partnering? So then that was like around September. We're like, well, we can like partner on things and kind of like help each other out. And so we started helping each other's businesses out in whatever way we can, helping with like, you know, teaching, like, because everyone when you work with entrepreneurs, you have like these different pricing models. And so if we go like, under the hood a little bit before it's like I come to Randall like, hey, by the way, we're gonna start a dojo. Because it's like we go from I meet Rachel, she teaches me how to create community, and then I can actually like create something I think is cool, you know, where it's easier for me to not just like burn myself into the ground over and over and over again. And it's like when you've been running business for 3 years, you know what to expect with like the next sales season. You're like, here we go again. And you're like, oh, it's going to be the next uphill battle this month as it was last month. And then, you know, like maybe it's not even that much work, but then it's like at first you start the business and you're like, you know, this isn't too bad. I could do this all the time. And then a year later, you're like, oh, well, the Zoom thing. I'll deal with the Zoom thing later. We've got a few more minutes.
Might fall off.
But yeah, it's like I can build. It's like, okay, so then you kind of get to a point where you're like, oh, but did you really like doing that? And then it's like 40 hours was easy once upon a time. Then like 5 hours feels like 40 hours, and then like every 5 hours you put into your business feels like the end of the world because you're like so burnt out. And so in order to like get out of that rut, you have to like keep moving and find what you like and start like digging for what you want. Like you actually have to do it. You have to dig hard and you have to dig deep. And the same thing I think goes for people who want careers that they believe in too. You really have to dig deep and dig for what you want. Like, what do you want? You know, like I don't know what I want, and other people don't know. I do know what I want though, and that's the challenge. Is if I know what I want, how do I shift the business in a way to where I can work sustainably and not just constantly be dreading my own business. And the difference, I guess, between working for a company and running the company is you can make changes so that it's like, well, I don't like doing this anymore. It was a fun job once upon a time. It's a weird, complicated thing, and it's a conundrum. But like when we got to like September rolls around, and we're like, okay, well, let's build some stuff. I'm like talking to Rachel. I'm like, okay, so let's test out a bunch of different like ways to sell workshops. Let's test out a couple of different types of workshops, and like different selling models. And then with the community thing, I was like, this community thing works. So it's like, I'm having fun building community. And I only started building community because of Rachel. And then it's like all these cool people start coming in. Randall's not the only cool, like, even those engaging like right now, like all of you are awesome, and everyone else in the dojo, it's like this is what I was looking for. Is like I wanted to build something that was just like, people can learn, we can do cool stuff, and then also be energized at the same time, because it's one thing to learn and like you can go to boring lecture halls, or we can just like get together and, while you know it is a dojo, I have like guidelines, I have rules, I have structure, I have things like that. It's a lot more like I used to do martial arts, and I loved doing martial arts. So I was like, I'm going to build the business in the format of something that I loved. I loved being in a dojo. I loved doing martial arts. And I kind of do my coding in a way like martial arts a little bit too. And then I use like now like servers, like big giant servers, you can save them in code. You can build a big giant server, save the entire server in code, and then you can like tweak it and modify it, or even build it on here and move it onto a bigger server. And so really, since you can do everything that I like spent time doing with like physical machines and like big cloud machines and like all this stuff, I'm like, I just want to like build with this cool thing with people like Randall, and like learn how to do that with Rachel.
And what has that turned into? What's the new thing?
Oh yeah, the new thing. See, this is why we have Rachel, because she helps me figure out why am I doing anything. Because without Rachel, I just talk about random things. So we built a toolbox, and then we built an entire. So basically, I'm working on what's called framework as code for developers, where developers can have like a full framework to develop cloud on, like on their desk, where it's like your asset, and it's like a little bit of the conundrum between like. So instead of buying a house, I could have bought a house and stayed in my job. Instead, I took everything that I built and put it into this instead, which is an asset that I own, which I could have got a mortgage and not own it. But I own this asset. And in my mind, I'm like, this asset is also scalable, because I can build software in it and on it and then scale it for like infinitely sized like things. So I can build cloud. It's a deep web in a box for building cloud. And it can scale infinitely. So it's like, basically online real estate is what it is. So I focus on teaching people how to build scalable assets to develop on, and then teach people how to develop scalable assets and scalable models, and where not just scalable but works on anything, which is called agnostic. So it's like universal compatibility is something that I care about as a way to talk, I guess, describe that. But yeah.
So like a tech entrepreneur who wants to develop something, build something, doesn't need to rent cloud space anywhere. You could have your own cloud sitting on your desk.
Exactly. Your own cloud.
And I think
hanging out.
I think depending on what you're building and what, you could really make it your own company running off of these.
Yes.
Depending on, what your product is. It's scalable that far, So you don't have, like you said, you don't have to pay the big people.
It's true, and you can build like an entire, like even before, because the one reason why I didn't use AWS and why I started, because I had a choice, should I just build an AWS, and I started to actually, and there's nothing wrong with AWS, but the thing about it was, you got to pay by the minute for certain things, which if you want to do like long weekends or just like leave it on and run some kind of test, then your cost goes up. It makes it kind of a little harder to control, a little harder to manage. And as a developer, I don't want to deal with that. I just don't. All I want to do is develop and not think about the overhead. I don't want to consider the overhead. I don't want to figure out the portal stuff. And then forbid that it's down or something in the middle of me trying to work on a project. That makes me feel like I'm crazy or like I'm losing my mind. The thing that this can do is, even if you use AWS, even if you use Azure or something like that and you develop for it, you can have a local instance where, like, even when it's particularly if you're using Kubernetes, because Kubernetes is what we teach and develop with, so very specific to, and Kubernetes is the cloud standard. So if you're working for Google, Microsoft, any of these big, major, massive companies, they use Kubernetes. That's what they use. So if you can build Kubernetes in this, in jets. Yeah, military jets. Yeah,
DoD is using Kubernetes.
Fast food chains, you name it. Like, everyone's using Kubernetes these days, and so like if you want to work in for NASA or like SpaceX, or like, I bet you any of these big companies, what are they using? Kubernetes. So this toolbox is designed to be able to let you build a little deep web that can attach to any production Kubernetes you want to, the way that we've designed it. And it's deployable now, and the dojo teaches you how to do it yourself. And then over time, I'm going to have like new things pre-developed as well, which are called blueprints, which I'll be releasing later on as we go on here. But we're going to be building those in the dojo. Anyone who comes in the dojo is going to know how we build these assets that you're going to see us selling, and then you can come to the dojo and learn how to build whatever you want, even if it's just for home projects. Maybe you want to have home security. Maybe you want to build a home media infrastructure for hosting movies and films and emulator things or whatever.
Start your own company.
But you could start your own company on it too.
Be like Jorge and Yasser and spend 22 hours on a weekend building stuff.
they do spend.
And then we're all like,
hours.
slow down. You're making us all look bad in the dojo. Okay.
Dojo members are able to like basically attach the tools to these things within like 2 days. So like if you already know how to develop and you know some stuff, like just like Randall said, like they're like, oh sweet, let's strap the tools. And the whole point of me building this was so the developers could just start developing. That's all I ever wanted. I wanted something so I could just start developing, so I could just like build, release. But if you're not trying to build a business, like people might want to have projects, or maybe you want to maintain a portfolio, or maybe you're just trying to learn development. This is also a painfully easy way to learn it, because we taught cybersecurity on this platform to make it easier for us to teach as well. So it's also something that makes it easy to learn on. It makes it easier to teach, easy to learn on, easy to develop with, because it's a tool that you develop for users to use as well. So if you're using this as a developer, it's designed to let you have users. That's what it's built for. It's built to make it easy to deliver to users, and it makes it easy for the developers to deliver something to users so that you don't lose your mind. That's what it is.
And for people who just like to play with stuff, you can hold bare metal in your hands. Just throw stuff on it.
Do whatever you want.
That's right.
So, I guess we have one more minute on this thing, I guess.
And we were talking about costs, with the cloud. Heaven forbid you forget to shut something down, and then you end up with a $3,000 bill on your credit card because they make you put your credit card on.
Yeah, they do.
And I've read the stories. That's painful.
Yeah, when you're trying to...
These guys are free. You just build it.
Yeah. Yeah, you pay once and you just have it. It's an owned asset. And then, the thing is, like, the cost also includes like labor, a workshop, all the stuff, and then it's business deployable. Just like we right now have a package that's like already business deployable, and for anyone who wants like managed services, that's something that we're coming up with next, because we've been building a business edition, which is in a different color and everything. Which I have some images of what the final finish looks like, but here's us working with our new enterprise edition, which is a little different from our consumer edition, which makes it once again for us to deliver to you, and you can use it to deliver to customers and people so rapidly, or build your own projects, learn. Everything's easier on these I built it to make life easier for remote work, and there you go. So we're gonna call it good, and one of these days I'm gonna upgrade Zoom, but we're gonna go ahead and end the stream now, because that pretty much says everything I wanted to say. So if you don't want to deal with these fees and things like that on AWS, just like I ended the Zoom, it's like sometimes I just don't want to deal with the fees. I don't even want to deal with the fees on Zoom. And so that's why we build things so that we don't have to deal with that. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and close this